First of all, I am not anti-police. I have a police officer son. I'm just pro-accountability. Just want to say that for sure. The mission, this is the mission statement of the DA's office. The mission statement of Solano County District Attorney's Office is to seek and do justice by assisting law enforcement and other public agencies in the investigation of crimes, prosecuting only those crimes which can be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Sorry. Ensuring a fair trial for those accused of crime, as well as for victims and witnesses of crimes, advocating to the public and to the Board of Supervisors necessary improvement to criminal justice system, and educating the public by providing prompt and accurate information regarding the activities of the office and administrating of criminal justice. The police department gave a slanted story, twisted the facts to justify their wrong shooting. Kendall Walker had committed no crime. Eyewitnesses stated that Kendall's speed at the time of the VPD throwdown spike strips and pit rammed his car was no more than 25 miles per hour. And he had just begun to get out of his car when police opened fire, shooting 5 times and hitting him 4 times. Kendall was not charging Officer Patrick Williams, who shot him, wielding a knife and hammer. There was never a knife in Kendall's hand, as the police department stated. His pocket knife remained in his pocket until after an officer removed it after Kendall was shot. There are several police officers and law enforcement family members in Kendall's family. None condoned the behavior of the law enforcement officers involved in Kendall's unnecessary death, and the behavior and statements of officers involved following the shooting, saying, "This is the aggressive-ass police work I signed up for. This is freaking awesome." Officer Spencer, who has since been promoted to sergeant as of March of this year, stated on video that he was just mad that he didn't get to F one off on him. Ask yourself, if the police shooting was so justified, why haven't they released the entire police video, which their statements released to the press do not line up with? Don't believe everything you read in the press or believe that the police are telling the truth. The reality is that the VPD did not settle a lawsuit because they were justified. The DA's office should reinvestigate the shooting based on all the information and depositions taken during the lawsuit. The original police statements don't line up with police depositions after witnesses were given that Kendall never charged the officers, and then a police video materialized that shows the same thing. The VPD statement reported that Kendall Walker charged at the police officer wielding a knife and a hammer. One report also includes a tire iron. This was a false statement to justify the shooting. It got all the reading public believing it was justified. Kendall was a hazmat worker, and these were items that he generally always carried in his car. His sister informed them of these tools prior to their engaging with him. The police just made this back work on their behalf to create a scenario that sounded very justifiable. Again, don't believe everything you read. It's only as good as the source. Kendall Walker's entire family would rather have our son, brother, and father rather than a ridiculous monetary settlement. The settlement only forces the VPD to be accountable due to the unnecessary actions used by the officers who incited the situation, which enabled them the opportunity to practice their aggressive-ass police work instead of putting into practice police procedures taught to diffuse a situation in order to reach a peaceful outcome. These officers are not example of peace officers whose desires were to diffuse a situation. It's unbelievable that the VPD would still keep these officers in positions to train other officers on police procedures and tactics after their inability to peacefully handle but unnecessarily escalate and incite a situation with someone who had done nothing to provoke the action taken, as told by witnesses. The money of the settlement brings no comfort to our family, but hopefully brings some accountability and influence action to make changes to prevent this from happening in the future. DA's office, take note. Without accountability for actions of a person or officer who's done wrong, they feel free to continue in this wrong behavior. It is negligent to allow an officer you know has had 3 lethal shootings to his record continue in his position. He is a danger to himself and others, and is unlikely to use calm, rational approach with the public he encounters. He turned a knock and talk into a killing, an unnecessary killing. It's the role of the leadership of the police, the mayor, the city manager to hold its officers accountable to a high standard of following police procedures, and to implement some action of accountability when procedures are not followed, which result in endangering officers and civilians' lives, resulting in a lethal shooting which could have been avoided if police procedures had been followed. The disregard for following through with any form of accountability by the DA's office and city officials is a travesty, and only encourages misconduct among officers in the future, as well as damaging the trust of the citizens in the justice system. City leadership is directly responsible for the lawsuit monies paid out for wrongful deaths on account of them not doing their jobs to enforce the following of procedures which were designed to protect the officers and the public alike. Firm action would prevent a recurrence of loss of life in the future. Their lack of action shows a lack of regard for the loss of life and the devastation caused to the families of their victims.